At least some frustrated Air New Zealand customers should finally be able to access their flight credits online after the national carrier today launched a self-service tool that was months in the making. But it's still not quite finished. Customers who bought tickets with New Zealand dollars can now log on to the service via the airline's web page and book new flights using their credits, bypassing the call centre, something they've been unable to do since the pandemic forced thousands of flight cancellations. The airline also says it might need to extend the 3-week freeze on new inbound passenger bookings to keep pace with isolation capacity. And it's in talks with the government about how to manage any isolation payments for returning Kiwis. But I started by asking Air New Zealand's Chief Customer Officer, Cam Wallace, why it's taken so long to get the online credit tool working.
We've been putting all the resources that we've had available to New Zealand to make sure that we got this up and running as fast as possible. But we also wanted to make sure that it worked and that it was secure and that we didn't have any problems as we brought it to market. So we've been conservative in terms of making sure it's the right product, but obviously we've been going as quick as we can.
So you've tested it pretty robustly, have you?
Well, we've done a lot of testing in the last 14 days and we are confident it's going to work. You know, some customers will get a lot of feedback, I suspect, in the next 48 hours, but we are very confident.
Do you reckon it can handle the rush that might come on?
Well, even in the last 2 hours, we've availed or used up to $90,000 worth of credit, so people are actively using it since we launched it at about 10 o'clock, so we are confident. We've done a lot of testing. This is the first tranche, so this covers about 300,000 of customers, and then we'll be extending it for even more complex bookings and for people booked in different markets over the next weeks and months.
Okay, so Cam, not everyone's got access to their credit from today, is that what you're saying?
Well, everyone's got access. They can use the digital tool if they're one of the 300,000 customers who've got a point-to-point booking from New Zealand. Some customers who have more complex bookings, who might have booked using different currency or booked from China or Singapore, don't have access, but what they do have access always to is our contact centre. And our contact centre, those wait times have come down significantly as we've added, nearly 500 more people to that department.
But that kind of defeats the purpose, because the whole point that people have been hanging out for this is they want to see their credits and they want to be able to take some control. So already today, some of the issues that have come up that people have reported to us is they can't see their credit. It's simply not there. They get a thing that says, sorry, cannot find this credit. And the other thing is, if they have had more than one flight that is cancelled, separate bookings, these do not show up as a pool of funding, do they? A single credit. You can't combine your credits.
Correct. Yeah, correct. You can combine your credits, but the vehicle for making that transaction still remains the contact centre, and the second tranche of development of the system is to add in the multiple credits. Sorry to interrupt,
Cam, but you've had 60 people working on this day and night for several months, you say, and that kind of seemingly simple fundamental thing where you can pull all your credits together in one pool of money and then spend it doesn't exist on this platform?
Not on this platform today, but it will exist on the platform in the weeks to come. And whilst it's seemingly a simple process, it's actually a pretty complex process because, as I say, when we used to cancel people's bookings, we used to just put them onto another flight, and we've never actually had the facility or the flexibility to combine credits or to transfer them. So we're dealing with a unique event in COVID, and we're dealing with some unique flexibility, and we're building an IT and digital solution from the ground up. So
how far off do you reckon that complete model is? How far away is that?
Oh, it's weeks away. We want to get confidence about this system, which covers a large portion of our customers, so it will take a lot of pressure off the contact centre, and we do have that in the work plan in the weeks to come.
So what's the value of the credits that are loaded up onto this?
Well, there's 300,000 customers, so I don't know the actual number, but it'll be in the hundreds of millions.
Okay. The other thing is that you say there is some flexibility there. So just explain that. People can use their credits to book flights for other people, can they? And they can combine domestic and international credits. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is people can take the value that they have in credit with Air New Zealand, then use it to where they want to travel, and they might have one or two different trips. They might have an international ticket booked and then want to use it for a domestic trip. They can use them up to 2 years. So our expectation, Lisa, is there'll be a whole bunch of people who know what their credit is and will be waiting for our international borders to open and actually want to travel internationally. So a whole bunch of flexibility for a whole range of customers who have different objectives in terms of where they want to travel to from and with them.
These flights that you've got on your website every day to LA at the moment, I mean, how many people get on those flights?
Not a huge amount. We have more inbound demand than we have outbound demand, and yet that's pretty logical. But
so what are we talking? Half a dozen people on a massive plane heading off to LA, or what kind of numbers?
A little more than that. On average, it's in the tens. It's not a huge number, but we're actually getting a lot more demand coming back into
So
New
what,
Zealand.
less than 100 people on an international flight to LA?
Yeah, but the reality about those services, even without any passengers, would fly them because we're flying them for cargo purposes. So the objective of those flights is to get New Zealand's export products to market and to bring in products into New Zealand as well. So
Understand.
they are quite lightly loaded outbound, but we're getting a lot more demand that we had anticipated actually coming into New Zealand. So there's a lot more expat, I think about 900,000 expat New Zealanders wanting to get home, and that's obviously been some of the challenges we've been dealing with in collaboration with the government in terms of where we put these people and how many beds we have for that 2-week stand down.
Have you had any discussions with the government about including the cost of isolation in air ticketing?
We've had numerous conversations about how to best manage it. It looks likely that a voucher system, some form of voucher system, will be the logical solution. So when you buy an air ticket, you also have to go to a third party and buy a voucher, and whether or not that is a voucher that you have to pay for or otherwise, that's up for the government to conclude their views on that. But that will maintain some discipline around how many people come into New Zealand per day.
So does
a bit like an ESTA when you go into the USA. You need
understand. So you will have to have a voucher to come into accommodation. If a person doesn't have a voucher, will you not carry them?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things we're looking at, and that seemingly is the best solution. So instead of people turning up in New Zealand and not having a room or overwhelming the managed quarantine facility, we'd deal with that at point of sale. For example, you could see someone going onto our website looking to book a ticket to New Zealand, and we would have a pop-up saying, this is what you require before you board the flight or before you check in for the flight. So that's probably the most logical way of managing the demand, making sure people don't get on the flights.
Cam, is this freeze on bookings going to go longer than 3 weeks?
We're looking at that today. There's a possibility that it could go for 2 or 3 days longer. By the middle of this week, we'll have some views on that, and then we'll hopefully start this voucher / kind of quota system.
Have you had any conversations with the government about compensation for the time that you've had to freeze ticket sales, and also the fact that you will, in essence, have to ration tickets in?
We haven't had active conversations with the government on compensation, but we have expressed our willingness to have that discussion at the same time when they're ready to have it.